This talk introduces the Julia, Vega, and Vega-Lite ecosystem. So what is Vega and Vega-Lite? Vega and Vega-Lite is a set of packages that allow you to create rich plots and figures. And here are some examples of figures that were created with the Vega and Vega-Lite system. The underlying technology for all of this is a set of JavaScript libraries. So here you can see a schematic of the packages involved on the JavaScript side. The rough story here is that anything Vega-Lite is relatively high level and concise, but you're restricted in the richness of the types of figures you can create. Any Vega-Lite plot actually is under the hood compiled into a Vega plot, and Vega gives you much more control and power over the kind of plots that you create, but they're also more verbose at that point. The Julia wrapping of all of these packages started with one package called Vega-Lite, and at this point it has exploded into a whole family of packages that expose different aspects of the Vega ecosystem. Some of them are more stable than others on the Julia side. I'll briefly introduce the various roles that these packages play now. The Vega datasets package just provides a bunch of tabular datasets that you can use for example plots. The core packages in this ecosystem are really Vega-Lite.jl and Vega.jl. And these packages contain structures that hold one particular plot, the VL spec and VG spec structure. And then there are various ways to create such specifications of plots or plots. And then there are things you can do with these plots. On the left-hand side, on the kind of things you can use to create plots, there are, first of all, options in code to create specifications, and I will briefly run over them later. And then there are other packages that also allow you to create these plots. And some of them are actually interactive UI applications more that allow you to click plots together with a mouse. On the right-hand side, things you can do with Vega-Lite specs is you can display them and you can save them to disk. The display story, though, is a lot richer than it looks here because the Vega ecosystem is tightly integrated with a whole bunch of downstream clients and packages for displaying plots that I will also cover later on. So the normal way to create a Vega-Lite specification, and there is a similar way to do that for Vega specifications, is the @VLPlot macro. And here's an example, and you can just quickly create a whole range of interesting plots with that command. So this is the main entry point that I think 90% of users should use 90% of the time. You can also use a string macro to copy and paste specifications that are in JSON format. That is sometimes handy if you want to copy an example from a JavaScript web page. Finally, you can load specifications from disk because you can save them as files. So here, for example, I'm loading a tabular data set. I'm piping it into a specification that I've actually loaded from disk from a JSON file. Another really nice option is to use Data Voyager to create Vega-Lite specs. So here I'm loading a data set, I'm piping it into Voyager. It will open an interactive UI that you can see here. And then you can click with your mouse together what kind of plot you want to have. And when you're done with that, you can actually extract the plot into the Julia environment from that interactive UI experience. How can you display specs? Well, if you, the vanilla experience is that it shows specs in a browser, but you can also install and load the package Electron Display. And in that case, you get a much richer experience for displaying plots with a thumbnail view and so on. If you're using any notebook environment, for example, Interact, or VS Code or Jupyter Lab, all of those clients actually ship the Vega and Vega-Lite JavaScript libraries out of the box and provide a really rich integration with the Vega and Vega-Lite ecosystem. So the plots that you create while running inside these environments will look in particular good, and any interactivity that you, for example, add to these plots will work flawlessly. Saving specs is very simple. You pipe it into the save function, and we support a whole range of file formats, SVG, PDF, PNG, and then specific formats, Vega-Lite and Vega here. So that is all very simple and should always just work. Here are some projects that are work in progress currently that I hope to finish over the next, I don't know, well, I'm not making a promise here. The first one is a package called Quick Vega. And my idea here is that it is a package that will have simple template functions to create specifications. For example, a function like histogram that you just pass a vector and it will plot a nice histogram, or a function called pair plot, where you pass a data frame and it will create a rich plot for that. So this would be a non-grammar of graphics API for this ecosystem. Currently, the package is empty, but it's actually a great way to get started to contribute into this package, because it's it should be a low investment in terms of getting started with this. A second project I'm working on is called Lyra.jl. It's an interactive UI for creating Vega specs. So it's similar to what we already have with Data Voyager, but it targets Vega instead of Vega-Lite. So what's the difference between these two UIs? Data Voyager is really meant as an exploration tool for data sets. So you get a data set and you want to understand it, and that's where Data Voyager really shines. Lyra, on the other hand, is a tool that allows you to fine-tune a specific plot. So that's the niches that these two projects occupy. I should say at this point that the Julia version of Lyra right now is not really functional, but the JavaScript version is actually feature-rich, and it shouldn't take too much time to bridge the remaining problems here. The final package that I'm working on is called Sandance. I have to admit, I actually have no idea what that is. It's some JavaScript package that integrates with Vega and Vega-Lite and creates really fancy 3D interactive graphics like the one that I've shown here. And I managed to wrap it in the Julia package so you can open it, but that's the level of understanding that I have about this package. So that will require a little bit more work. So in summary, the Vega and Vega-Lite ecosystem is large at this point. It's really well integrated into many things, into many different front ends, into the table ecosystem, into Queryverse, etc. The core packages of this ecosystem are very stable and production ready. They have been stable and production ready for many years, so you can use them day in and day out. And one of the biggest benefits in my mind of this ecosystem is that the real functionality, namely that's all in the JavaScript libraries, is developed by a very large team of researchers that are incredibly talented. So what typically happens is that every couple of months, I just update the underlying JavaScript library, and we have new features in this ecosystem, and I actually didn't contribute anything to it. So that's my favorite style of working, and I think it means that we will see many, many more features coming into this ecosystem into the future. And with that, thank you very much.